Welcome back, everyone. Michael here with Offshore Citizen. Today I'm going to have a conversation with you about currencies, about TransferWise/Wise, and some of the trends that are going on in terms of holding your money, and as a result, some considerations that you have, because Wise has started. I did a video on them a little while ago. You can go and check it out. Great service. I like it a lot. But if you hold large amounts of money in euros, they've added some new fees, so we're going to talk about that in a second. Before we do that, if you haven't already, please smash the subscribe button, nail the notification bell. Really appreciate your support, really appreciate you joining us. Hopefully you don't miss out on any of our future videos. You can hit the all notifications thing so you don't miss out. And if you would like help at all with international structuring, or either for yourself personally or for your business, in terms of the strategy or the implementation, please reach out to us. You can book a call with me at calendly.com/Michael Rosmer. There's a link in the description below. Or you can visit our websites, offshorecitizen.net, offshorecapitalist.com, and you can send us a message through either of those. Okay, so TransferWise, which changed their name recently to Wise, great service, wonderful service. However, just recently, they sent out a message saying if you were holding over a certain balance, I think is it 35,000 euros, something like that, they're going to start charging you fees to hold that money. And this is part of the negative interest rate trend. And I, of course, am an outspoken critic of the banks, right? The reality at this point is banks impede business rather than facilitate it. Unfortunately, because we live in a digital world and because we live in a global world, you can't just carry around cash and send it to the person you're paying in Kenya. You need to have something digital. But the problem is, literally, they're charging you to hold your money. Go back, what was it, in 1980s, you could get, high interest rate, and it went down, became practically nothing, and now it's negative in certain currencies. So I think this factors into a few different things that are interesting for me here. Number one is, okay, why is there something special about Wise or TransferWise? And the answer is no. The answer is that really, so long as they keep negative interest rates, then over time, everyone's going to charge fees to hold euros, okay? At the same time, what does that mean about what we should hold? Does that mean we should hold US dollars? Well, it's interesting that if you're transacting on Wise in US dollars and somebody sends you money from certain countries, they'll reject it. At the same time, if you're sitting on there and you're from certain countries, they won't allow you to have a dollar account, or they won't allow you to have a card connected to it. So there's a lot of restrictions around dollars. And this starts to make me think, hey, listen, what should I be holding as currencies? And I'd love to hear from you guys what you think. Obviously, okay, people argue crypto, and there's something to be said for that. Certainly much easier to transact, and nobody's taking your money if you're holding Tether or USDC or DAI or something like that. So that's an option up to a point. But the reality is simply you can't pay for things in that currency. On the flip side, I could go over to Hong Kong dollars. If you go to Citibank in Hong Kong, you can get the Citi Prestige Visa, which is an amazing points card, very, very good. The challenge with it is it's denominated in Hong Kong dollars. However, their conversion fees are fairly good, and they give you good points, so it kind of compensates, especially if you're buying business class tickets. Not that that's been so useful in the last year, but that's maybe a little bit of a compensation. I could go look now. On the flip side, I've been kind of concerned about the Hong Kong dollar peg to the US dollar, given kind of what's been going on in Hong Kong, right? And so does that sound good to me? I don't know. So then we can go over to Singapore. Singapore is a similar sort of deal, right? So I like Singapore quite a lot. I'm not worried about their currency so much. It's free floating, so there's not a peg to break or something like that. Great country, well run, stable, etc. However, what's the challenge? Well, almost nobody transacts in Singapore dollars. So if I'm sitting there swiping my card, well, I have to do a conversion from Singapore dollars to whatever currency is where I am. I'm here in UAE today, and in UAE, again, dirhams, it's pegged to the dollar. Okay, it's considered a pretty stable currency. I wouldn't be too concerned about that. The peg probably is going to be fairly solid. However, again, there's a conversion rate. If I'm swiping my dirhams account, that's the fees. And if we just think about this logically, right? Let's say that I'm like, okay, I'm in Europe and I could pay an interest rate to hold euros, right? Or I can pay a conversion rate every time I swipe. It's kind of the same thing. In fact, it's probably cheaper just to hold. The negative interest rate's not going to be as low as usually the conversion fee. You're talking about a couple % on a lot of these cards, right? So that doesn't really work out so great. So what is the deal here? What should we be doing in terms of currencies? Again, you could make the argument for Swiss francs, right? Switzerland has a lot of debt, so how stable that will be long term. It's been in a long-term upcycle. I'm kind of a counter-cyclical guy, so what goes up for a long time concerns me. What's been down for a long time is a little bit more exciting. I think the British pound is a good bet. But does this mean that we shouldn't transact in euros? So my answer actually is no. I actually think that we should. I'm moving a lot of what I'm doing from dollars to euros. And why is that, in spite of these negative interest rates? The answer is because I'm not bullish on the US dollar relative to the euro and relative to the pound. So in my view, you have these long time currency cycles. I hear some people who are saying, oh, the dollar is down because of high inflation and all this kind of thing. Look, the reality is the Europeans are printing as much money as the Americans are, and the US dollar has been in like a 7-8 plus year bull run. So for it to correct down somewhat now is not an abnormal thing. I'm not concerned about that it's like, oh my gosh, it peaked at, if I think of in Canadian dollar terms, Canadian dollar to US dollar, they had that one little spike when everybody was selling stocks and money was going into dollars back in March of 2020. And it spiked up to, I think, 144, and now it's down to like 121. It's like, yeah, but the 144 was an abnormal spike, right? So the normal was 130 something. And frankly, it had gone up a lot over, the previous 3-4 years. So it's correcting down more to a reasonable level. I'd be concerned if it had a protracted, or if it was dipping like that on a consistent basis over a long period of time, then I'd be concerned, but I don't see that as being very likely. But the problem is, it's just really hard to transact in US dollars today. And if I think about the US dollar to euro exchange rate, I think over time, I'm expecting that the euro is going to outperform the dollar. And so even with that negative interest rate, I think that at least for the next few years, probably, we're going to see some upward trajectory. Similar idea for the pound. So I'm investing in pound-denominated assets, and to me, that's partly an upward trend on my overall money. So if I can get 10, 20, whatever the percentage is off it, but then the currency also appreciates, then I'm kind of compounding my money, which is going to increase the returns overall. So anyway, that's my thoughts. I think it does make sense that, all right, you want to pay attention to what currencies you're dealing with. And does this mean I'm not going to start using TransferWise? No, I think TransferWise, I'm going to keep calling them TransferWise. I know they want to be called Wise, but who knows what Wise is when you're talking about it. TransferWise kind of tells me about what they are. Anyway, so TransferWise, I'm going to keep using them, and I'll store euros there as well as dollars and pounds and whatever other currencies I have to deal with. Because I think the service is great, and in spite of the fact that, okay, there's this little erosion, I think in the big picture, it's probably a bit of noise. And so we will see. I would like if there was another currency that would come along that I could hold money in, but unfortunately not so much right now. So anyway, hope that was helpful for you. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments below. Like I said, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what currencies are useful to hold. Obviously, if you're living in a particular country, it makes more sense to hold that currency. But in general, which currencies are more likely to do well over the next little while? I'm going to look forward to seeing you guys on the next video.